Why did the Giants have the Bears pick?
They traded for Justin Fields last year. They traded up with the Giants.
Got it.
So the Giants last year, they wanted to take they wanted Devontae Smith, and then they flip-flopped with the Eagles. No, the Eagles and the Cowboys flip-flopped.
And then the Eagles took him.
And then the Giants traded out with the Bears. Bears take Fields, and then
they took Tony.
Parsons.
No, but and the Giants wound up ultimately taking Tony, but that was okay.
Well, it's good. Looking out. Yo, come on, man. You had me looking whack.
I'm ready for the desert.
You ready? Yeah, Zona. Okay. How many rings you got on?
Just 2.
What's with the love for the rings?
Come on, man. You know, it's an added element of being able to show your personality.
Okay.
It's like fashion and accessories.
Yo, give me some, yo. I haven't seen you since the Super Bowl. I've seen you since
but
the
we
Super
haven't
Bowl,
recorded
but
anything.
As far as this goes.
Yeah, nah. But which, by the way, I mean, I did pretty well on some of those props that I had given out, which is awesome. Yeah, no, it's been a wild ride. I love draft season. You know me.
Mm-hmm.
But the NFL, man, let me just say something. They were talking about before. I think it was yesterday. I was hearing rumblings that there may be more viewers on the schedule release for the NFL than the Sixers Heat game last night. And if that was the case, and I'm not 100% sure, but the fact that was even a conversation will further highlight that the NFL is in the penthouse and, you know, every other league is still,
yeah,
you know, maybe one's on the 50th floor, right? One's on the 75th floor, but the NFL is still very much in the penthouse.
I've seen some stuff about how the draft gets higher ratings than like game 1 of the NBA Finals or like the Stanley Cup, all the games combined, like the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah.
That's wild, son. Like, that's a trophy is on the line.
Which is unfortunate because the NHL playoffs are usually the most evenly matched and they're usually the most exciting just because there's so much parity in the league. You know, the 6th seed and 3rd seed are not, you know, there's not a huge difference.
They've also had the most like 3-0 comeback victories.
Yeah. And also they've had 8 seeds win the Stanley Cup, where that's not going to happen.
Well, I remember
in the
the year the Kings they beat the Rangers.
Yeah.
Oh no, it might have been when the Kings beat the Devils.
Yeah, there was another year, but rest assured it's happened, and your 6 seeds, your 7 seeds, whatever it is. So it's unfortunate, but I guess, you know, the gist of the story is the NFL is king, and yeah, to your point, they turned the draft into must-see TV 3 days. For with all due respect, and I love the draft. Don't get me wrong, because I love talking about the guys. It's all a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
So they're turning it into this big spectacle, but you know the NFL is a 12-month, you know, league. It's crazy.
Yeah, you don't got to sell me on the draft being, you know, a crapshoot. I've always said one of my least favorite things to do is like give out grades and all that.
Yeah.
There's been some like NFL Twitter. There have been these debates, and I don't know how you feel about this, but do you think you have to give drafts? Like some people are saying, no, you don't need to give them 2-3 years. You could tell right away that was the right selection, that was the right need. But I feel like that's not it. Like, go back and just think of some of the takes you've had in the past, or I've had, or just anyone that you follow. It's like, oh, this guy's a can't miss prospect, and then they're out the league. You know, the Giants and Jets in particular, we've drafted a ton of players that are not even on their team. Remember Vernon Goldston?
Yeah, how much of it is the player and how much of it is kind of the organization he was set up with? Yeah, no, I mean, I hear you and I agree, and I also do think there are these certain instances and situations where you hear players, right? Like I think it was Russillo was chatting with Booger one day. This was probably months ago, and he was talking about, you know, has there ever been a situation where you knew, you know, heading into training camp after the draft, you know, he's like, did you ever know right away that this guy was going to be really, really good or this guy was going to be really, really bad? And he gave a couple of little tidbits of here and there where, you know, on day one, he knew this guy wasn't going to be anything. And I think that's an exaggeration. But I think, you know, as a professional athlete, you have hunches and you have these strong senses of these urges and these feelings where you probably do know something that other people don't. So I don't know. It's important to get these guys in your building, and it's important to have a strong supporting cast. So I don't really know the answer, but there are people who do think on first glimpse they know what's going to happen. And I don't know if I agree with it, but they do believe that.
I wonder if Booger McFarland was on the Colts team when Bill Polian was the GM, because I've heard Bill Polian say that there's been times where they took someone in the first round and first day that they show up, they're like, damn, we fucked up.
Booger McFarland was used an example of a player from the Bucks. He said that the player was one of the most mentally weak players that he had ever not just played alongside, but was on the same team as him. He was this guy who played in a northern school. He came to Tampa, and in the first practice, he couldn't deal with the heat. And that's kind of an exaggeration, but maybe that is like you're kind of there's a real issue there, and it's kind of being highlighted by something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you got to show up in better shape, or maybe that's a mental thing. The heat is a mental thing, right? Like if you're hydrated and you're taking your plays off, you'll be fine, right? Of course, there are extremes, but generally speaking, if you're in a professional team in a professional setting, there's the best strength and conditioning people there. They're making sure that you have enough hydration, and they. So is it a mental thing? Is this guy, so I don't know, but I think that's interesting. Bill Polian, he's a veteran in the game, but he also thought Lamar Jackson should have been a wide receiver.
Yeah, and by the way, he was the only one that thought that.
Yeah,
but it became this thing where like not anytime Lamar. And there's going to be a lot of Lamar loving on this one. We're going to do some AFC win totals and kind of just like talk about the divisions and with the schedule. But back to Bill Polian, like, hey man, that was the analyst that came out and said that. Mm-hmm. And then it became this thing that's been exaggerated so much where, not bad for a wide receiver. Anytime like Lamar has a big game or he wins the MVP, even Harbaugh has been like not bad for a wide receiver. It's like, yeah, I get it. But it is also like, that was the only guy.
Yeah.
The knock on Lamar coming out of college was he was a little unknown. It was a little bit of an unknown. Yeah, he won the Heisman, but the transition into the NFL, what was that going to be like? Which was fair, but at no point did I think he was going to play running back or receiver.
Yeah. That's just old dude talk.
And it's crazy. The 2018 draft, the last two quarterbacks taken are the two best ones.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
My bad. Rosen was in between them two. My boy Josh,
10?
Yeah, it was
10, right? Yeah.
Bad call for me? Bad call?
Been on like 9 different teams. It's a crapshoot. I think, but the Rosen story was just so interesting because of what it kind of, we've discussed this, is what it meant for the NFL. And I think there's some shifts that we could talk about, that the draft highlighted and free agency highlighted. But I think that draft was kind of, a tipping point in, hey, I don't care if this guy was just drafted in the first round. I want my guy. I just got this job. I'm bringing in my own people. With all due respect to Josh Rosen, and guess what? It turned out to be the right decision.
Yeah.
So this idea of you inheriting a situation and
being married to a player.
Yeah. But I think kind of the shift with the wide receivers this offseason has been super interesting. This idea of rather than maybe have 3 or 4 good receivers, let's go have 2 elite skill guys, and those 2 elite skill guys will make those other 2 or 3 fringe guys better just because of the attention that those 2 are bringing. And it's shifting away, right? Like wide receiver was never a position that people paid up for. Like, not really.
Nah, but I think over the last 5-6 years with more passing, right? It's the same shit with like cornerback. Now you need to have like 4 or 5 good corners.
Yeah. Because
you're not just lining up with 2 wide receivers anymore. It's 3, 4.
And these tight ends are receivers.
Tight ends are receivers now too. So you need to have guys that could cover.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's been a lot of wide receivers to leave and go like elsewhere. And, wide receivers that have had monster seasons after being traded in the offseason since 2015. Brandon Marshall.
Jets.
Yeah, 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs going to the Bills, 1,535 yards, 8 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins going from Watson to Kyler Murray, 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then there's been Brandon Cooks, your boy. Brandon Cooks is your boy.
Underrated career.
Over 1,000 yards in all 3 seasons after being traded. And now we got Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown leaving, and we still don't know what's going to happen with Odell, Landry, Julio, and Sammy Watkins. Now, in some of those situations, the quarterbacks have been significant upgrades.
Yeah.
But then in some of the other ones, it's kind of been either the same or like less.
I think what a lot of that what that comes down to is these teams are opting in to pay these guys, right? Or these guys are clearly saying, "Hey, we need a big time receiver to, put our offense over the top." So you're voluntarily going out of your way to make a trade for this guy or give this guy the big contract. Of course, I mean, when you think about it, of course, in theory, they should be performing because you're putting a huge emphasis on this, this person. So I think it makes sense. No one ever pays a wide receiver and then doesn't throw the ball to him, right? Or no one pays a running back and then doesn't
give him the ball. Yeah, it would defeat the purpose.
Exactly. But Adams, that was crazy. Just considering the whole Rodgers offseason, right? Just like you would think with all of the the talk behind the scenes of his weapons have always been below par. If he does come back, you would think they would, roll the red carpet out to have as many weapons as they can for this guy to keep him happy. It's almost like it was
his best weapon ever.
It was literally the complete opposite.
Yeah.
But we discussed this on the draft, on playback during the draft. They hit home runs in the second round.
In the past, historically, yeah.
Jordy, Devontae Adams, Cobb.
Greg Jennings going further back too. He was
I think wide receiver, and I think this trend of taking wide receivers early is great. But for every great first round wide receiver there's been an equally great wide receiver in the second or third round over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, look at Jalen Reagor, and then Justin Jefferson went right after him. Yeah. Look at Tony, and then you look at Jamar Chase, same draft class. Obviously, one went 5, the other one went 20. But overall, I think it's a position where you can find good wide receivers. Now, there's so many. There's not a lot of Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hills. That's why they're also making north of $28 million. But for the most part, I think there's a lot of depth at those positions.
And there's different flavors, too, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different flavors with quarterbacks nowadays. It's like ice cream. There's a million different flavors for quarterbacks. But the same goes for receivers, too. Mm-hmm. I think it's a cool period of time. And if you have that quarterback on that cheap deal, it is the time to go spend up for some of those skill guys to make him, just to jump on the Jets for a second. I like what they're doing. They got a rookie quarterback, and they're just second round pick on a running back. He was the best running back on the board. We'll take him. Who cares? We took one in the third round. We'll take a wide receiver 10, even though we took one in the second round last year. It's just put all of your chips on the table to make your young quarterback successful, and so you can figure it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least you have those options there for someone else. That's what the Dolphins are doing, in my opinion, right? They're surrounding Tua with a bunch of guys, and it's like, hey, look, if it doesn't work with Tua, Brady was supposed to come here anyway. So,
yeah, I mean, look at what the Chargers have done.
Yep.
Look at what the Bengals have done. That's kind of one of the things that we've sort of carved out our own name in, is as far as what VM is and all that. Talking about having a rookie contract for your quarterback, and your quarterback being good too, right? Because there's been quarterbacks on rookie contracts, i.e. the team that I root for, where it didn't matter. And you go and you get a Galladay, and you go and you spend draft picks on wide receivers and all that shit, but it don't matter because the quarterback has not been good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not just having a quarterback on a rookie contract. You want to have the right quarterback on a rookie contract, and then from there, shit like Cincinnati could go down. Shit like the Chiefs, when they went to the Super Bowl and won it, still a rookie contract with Mahomes. You could get Frank Clark. You could get Honey Badger. And then when you do pay them, you want to make sure there's no drop-off from them actually getting the contract. Like a Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, they haven't won all those Super Bowls, but every year they're, an 11-win team at least?